In the sunny suburbs of Phoenix, Arizona, Jessica Lane lived a life many envied but few understood. Her days were filled with shopping trips, luxury spas, and high-end restaurants. Neighbors often saw her stepping out of sleek, expensive cars, always dressed like someone who belonged in fashion magazines. But no one knew how she funded this glamorous lifestyle. Jessica never talked about work, and no one saw her going to a job. The truth was darker than anyone could imagine. Jessica was a gold digger, carefully choosing her victims and bleeding them dry without remorse. 2 years before her story became news, Jessica met Aaron Matthews at a local bar. Aaron was older, quiet, and recently divorced. He was the perfect target. With his own construction business and years of savings, he represented everything Jessica wanted: money and stability without too many questions. Jessica played her role flawlessly. She acted like she'd fallen head over heels for him, showering him with attention, admiration, and promises of a future together. Aaron, lonely and craving affection after his painful divorce, believed every word. Before long, Jessica had moved into Aaron's life without actually moving into his house. She convinced him to pay her rent, buy her clothes, and fund her weekend getaways. At first, Aaron thought nothing of it. He believed he was helping the woman he loved. Jessica, however, saw him only as her next big payday. She told him stories about a sick mother who needed expensive treatments and hinted at past debts she was too ashamed to explain in detail. Aaron never pressed her. He trusted her too much. What Aaron didn't know was that Jessica had perfected this game long before she met him. She had scammed at least 4 men in different cities, always disappearing before they realized the truth. Each time, she reinvented herself. A new name, a new lie, and a new victim. Aaron was just her latest dot, but unlike her previous targets, Aaron's financial support wasn't enough for Jessica. She wanted more, much more. Over time, she began to see Aaron not as a steady source of monthly cash but as a potential jackpot. She watched him carefully, noting his habits, his routines, and his weaknesses. She listened closely when he talked about his business deals and where he kept his money. Eventually, she discovered something that changed everything. One night, after Aaron came home from a work trip, Jessica stayed over at his house. As he thought she was asleep, Aaron pulled out a hidden safe from behind a painting in his bedroom wall. Jessica, half hidden under the sheets, watched him stack bundles of $100 bills inside. He counted at least $300,000 before locking the safe again. Jessica's heart raced. That was the moment her plan shifted from slow manipulation to a full-blown heist. From then on, every sweet word and gentle touch Jessica gave Aaron was fake. Every smile was part of her calculation. She convinced him to give her a spare key, telling him it was so she could surprise him with dinners or clean up while he worked late. Aaron, blinded by love, handed it over without a second thought. Jessica started studying his house like a thief preparing for a robbery. She noted the security cameras, learned how to disable them without drawing suspicion, and even figured out how to erase short segments of footage. She rehearsed the sequence in her mind over and over. All she needed was one night when Aaron wasn't home. She didn't care that Aaron had given her everything she asked for. She didn't care that he loved her. In her mind, he was just another fool to exploit. And now she had found the ultimate prize, the hidden cash. That would finally let her walk away from her life of small scams. What Jessica didn't realize was that planning a theft and committing one are very different things. And the night she chose to take everything would change both their lives forever. Jessica knew that if she wanted to pull off the theft successfully, she had to be patient. Rushing into Aaron's house while he was away without a plan would only get her caught. She began to prepare herself carefully. Every day she spent at Aaron's house, she wasn't just playing the role of the loving girlfriend. She was memorizing the layout of his home. She paid close attention to where the security cameras were placed, how long the hallway lights stayed on before shutting off, and when Aaron usually left for work or traveled for business. Each detail mattered. The safe was the most important part. Jessica remembered exactly where Aaron kept it. Hidden behind a large painting of a desert landscape in his bedroom, the safe was not locked with a key, but with a numeric code. She didn't know the code yet, but she had watched him enter it once before, pretending to sleep beside him. She didn't catch all the numbers, but she knew part of the sequence. Over time, she tested her guesses by casually suggesting numbers to him during conversations, pretending it was a game or a lucky draw. Aaron had no idea he was giving her clues to open his own safe. Her confidence grew. But there was still one major problem. Aaron had installed cameras throughout the house. Even though Jessica had the spare key, sneaking inside would trigger the recording system. Disabling the cameras without making him suspicious became her next challenge. Over the next few weeks, Jessica slowly tested the limits. Once, when Aaron was working late, she disabled one camera near the front door by loosening the cable behind the wall panel, causing it to shut off for 5 minutes. When Aaron checked the system the next morning, Jessica acted surprised and suggested it might be a technical glitch. Aaron believed her. He had no reason not to. She tried the same trick on the other cameras, always making sure to limit the downtime to avoid drawing too much attention. As her plan neared completion, Jessica told Aaron that she wanted to spend more time with him, planting the idea that he should go on a short business trip to clear his head, and that she'd wait for him when he got back. She even suggested she'd prepare a special dinner for him as a surprise upon his return. Aaron, feeling grateful and cared for, booked a short trip to Las Vegas to handle a client meeting. Jessica watched him leave that morning, her heart racing with both fear and excitement. She gave herself a few hours after his departure before making her move, ensuring he was truly gone. When night came, Jessica changed into black clothing and gloves. She parked her car a few blocks away to avoid being noticed. She approached the house confidently, using the spare key to slip inside without raising alarms. The cameras were already disabled earlier that day under the excuse of another technical glitch. Inside the house, everything felt unnervingly familiar. The silence pressed against her ears as she moved toward the bedroom. She pulled the painting away from the wall and stared at the safe. Taking a deep breath, she entered the code she had pieced together. On her second attempt, the safe clicked open. Stacks of cash sat neatly inside, more money than she had ever seen in one place. Nearly $300,000 in $100 bills. Jessica's hands trembled as she loaded the cash into her black duffel bag. She told herself over and over that this was her last job. After this, she could disappear for good, but Jessica didn't know that Aaron had already returned home. His truck was parked 2 blocks away. His footsteps were silent as he approached the house from the back door. He was holding a gun, and he wasn't planning to ask questions. Jessica's heart pounded as she zipped the bag shut, the weight of the cash heavier than she expected. She paused for a moment, listening to the silence inside the house. Everything seemed safe. She believed Aaron was hundreds of miles away, handling his business. She didn't know that Aaron had received a security alert earlier that day. One of his cameras had glitched again, the same pattern he had ignored too many times. This time, suspicion overpowered trust. He canceled his trip without telling anyone and drove straight home, parking his truck 2 blocks away to avoid alerting Jessica. Aaron walked cautiously toward his house. He noticed the small signs. The front door was locked, but something about the way the curtains were drawn told him someone was inside. He entered silently through the back door, a habit he used when coming back from late-night jobs. From the same moment he stepped inside, he sensed something was wrong. The air felt heavy, and the house was too quiet. In the dim light of the staircase, Aaron gripped his handgun tightly. He moved slowly, step by step, toward the upper floor. Then he saw it, a faint glow from a flashlight coming from his bedroom. His stomach twisted. Every fear he had ignored for months came rushing forward. He wasn't being paranoid. Someone was inside. Aaron inched toward the bedroom doorway. There, in the weak beam of the flashlight, stood Jessica, her back to him, pulling wads of cash from his safe and stuffing them into a black duffel bag. For several seconds, Aaron couldn't move. The sight was too shocking to process. Jessica, the woman he thought he loved, the woman he had trusted with his money, his secrets, and his life, was robbing him. He wanted to believe it was a nightmare. But the bag filling with his money was real. Suddenly, Jessica sensed something. A shift in the air, a creak in the floor. She turned and saw him standing there, gun raised, eyes wide with betrayal and rage. She froze. Time seemed to stop. Aaron's mind raced. He wanted answers. He wanted to scream. But all he saw was the duffel bag in her hands, the proof of her betrayal. Every lie, every fake smile, every kiss flashed through his mind like a cruel joke. Jessica didn't speak. Her instincts screamed at her to run. Without thinking, she bolted toward the bedroom door, clutching the bag tightly against her body. That's when Aaron fired. The deafening crack of the gunshot shattered the silence. Jessica stumbled mid-stride, the bag slipping from her grasp. She collapsed onto the floor, gasping in shock and pain. Blood spread quickly beneath her, dark and thick against the polished hardwood. Aaron stood frozen, the gun still pointed at her unmoving body. His hands trembled as the reality of what he had done sank in. He staggered forward, dropping the gun beside her. Jessica was still alive but fading fast, her breath shallow and ragged dot in panic. Aaron grabbed his phone and called 911. His voice cracked as he told the dispatcher he had shot an intruder. He didn't explain who the intruder was. He couldn't. Minutes later, flashing red and blue lights lit up the quiet street. Paramedics rushed Jessica to the hospital, while police handcuffed Aaron on his own blood-stained floor. His mind was blank. The woman he loved had just tried to rob him, and now she might die because of him. As Aaron sat silently in the back of the police cruiser, he realized that everything he thought was real had been a lie from the start. Jessica was rushed into emergency surgery as soon as the ambulance arrived at the hospital. The bullet had torn through her lower back, shattering bone and damaging vital nerves. Doctors worked frantically to stabilize her, unsure if she would survive the night. Outside the operating room, police officers stood watch, their reports labeling her not as a victim, but as a suspect in an attempted robbery. At the same time, across town, Aaron sat in a cold, silent police interview room, replaying the night's events over and over in his mind. He couldn't understand how everything had collapsed so fast. For months, Jessica had been the center of his life. Every smile, every gentle touch, every whispered promise felt real to him. Now those moments were poisoned memories. His confusion mixed with guilt and anger. He had loved her, yet in a split second, he had pulled the trigger and nearly ended her life. But Aaron wasn't thinking clearly. His mind kept returning to the image of her standing at the open safe, stealing the money he had worked his entire life to earn. When detectives questioned him, Aaron admitted to everything. He explained how he came home early after getting suspicious about the cameras. He described how he found her mid-theft, how she ran, and how he fired without thinking. There were no excuses, just the raw, broken account of a man whose heart had been ripped apart. The police, however, had to focus on the facts. They arrested Aaron for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and reckless endangerment. Meanwhile, Jessica survived surgery but awoke to devastating news. She would never walk again. The bullet had caused irreversible spinal damage. Lying in a hospital bed, paralyzed from the waist down, Jessica refused to speak to anyone. Not the doctors, not the detectives who came to question her, and certainly not her lawyers. Her plan had crumbled, and the reality of her new life closed in around her. News of the shooting spread quickly through the local community. At first, many saw Jessica as a victim, a woman shot by her own boyfriend. But as the investigation deepened, police uncovered Jessica's hidden past. She had multiple identities across different states and a history of conning men using the same pattern: gain their trust, drain their wallets, then vanish. Her manipulative schemes, once carefully buried, were now exposed for everyone to see. Sympathy for her disappeared overnight. In court, Aaron's lawyers presented his emotional breakdown as evidence that he acted in fear, not malice. They argued that in the moment, seeing someone stealing his life savings in the dead of night, he had every reason to believe he was under threat. But prosecutors pointed out that Jessica had been unarmed, and that firing a gun as she fled was reckless and excessive. The trial turned into a media spectacle. Every detail of their toxic relationship, every dollar Jessica had taken, every lie she told became public knowledge. People debated endlessly over who the real victim was. Aaron, the betrayed man who lost everything? Or Jessica, the manipulative gold digger who paid for her greed with her freedom and her body? As weeks turned into months, Jessica remained silent, her once glamorous life now reduced to hospital rooms and legal paperwork. She refused to testify, knowing that the more she spoke, the more the world would see her for what she truly was. Aaron, awaiting his sentencing, sat alone in his cell. The life he built, the trust he gave, and the love he believed in were gone. Both their lives had been destroyed not by hatred, but by lies and greed. And neither would ever recover. The courtroom was tense on the day of Aaron's sentencing. Months had passed since that night of betrayal and gunfire, but the scars remained visible on both sides. Aaron sat quietly, thinner than before, his face pale and drawn from sleepless nights and endless guilt. Across the room, Jessica sat in her wheelchair, her expression unreadable. Once the woman who flaunted wealth and seduced men with ease, she now looked fragile, trapped in a body that no longer obeyed her. The trial had revealed everything. Detectives had dug through Jessica's past, uncovering a long trail of scams stretching across several states. Her carefully hidden life unraveled, piece by piece. In court, prosecutors presented evidence of bank transfers from previous victims, fake names she had used, and even testimonies from men she had disappeared on after draining their finances. Jessica's reputation was destroyed, but it didn't change the physical reality of her condition. She was paralyzed for life, and nothing could undo that. Aaron's defense centered around his fear and heartbreak. His lawyers argued that he acted in panic, finding an intruder in his home in the middle of the night. But prosecutors pushed back, pointing out that he had fired as Jessica was fleeing, not attacking. Aaron's love, they said, had turned into rage, and in that moment, he had chosen to shoot the woman he once claimed to care about. In the end, the jury faced a difficult decision. After days of deliberation, they found Aaron guilty not of attempted murder, but of reckless endangerment and unlawful use of deadly force. The judge, recognizing the emotional toll and betrayal Aaron had suffered, sentenced him to 18 months in prison. It was less than what the prosecutors wanted, but more than what his defense had hoped for. Jessica showed no emotion as the sentence was read. She neither looked at Aaron nor reacted to the judge's words. She remained silent, just as she had throughout the entire trial. Her life outside the courtroom was even quieter. After her release from the hospital, she vanished from public attention. There were rumors she moved to another state, living under yet another new identity, but no one knew for sure. For someone who once thrived on attention, Jessica now seemed to prefer the shadows. Aaron served his sentence quietly. He kept to himself, refusing interviews and ignoring letters from curious journalists. When he was finally released, he didn't return to his house. He sold the property, unable to live among the memories that haunted every room. His business, once successful, had collapsed during the trial. He left Phoenix shortly after, looking for a place where no one knew his name or his story. People in the community eventually stopped talking about what happened. But for those who remembered, the story served as a chilling reminder of how love could be twisted into manipulation, and how trust, once broken, could destroy lives. Jessica's greed and Aaron's heartbreak had collided in the worst way possible, leaving both of them broken. The house where it all happened stood empty for months, a silent witness to everything that unfolded inside its walls. Eventually, someone new bought it, repainting the walls and covering the blood-stained floors. But even now, some say that when you pass by late at night, the place feels colder than the rest of the neighborhood, as if it still remembers. Asterisk, asterisk.